Hi, good afternoon and Happy New Year 2025. As you all know, the Border Gavaskar series has just ended. The test series in Australia and India has just come to an end, and last Sunday, it was a weeks ago. So this Sunday, I'm just going to make a small review of this in this video. It has been an exciting series, a very exciting test series, a series between two vulnerable batting lineups and two strong bowling attacks, supposedly strong bowling attacks. But Australia finally winning the series 3-1 by winning the last test at Sydney and taking the Border Gavaskar trophy, regaining it after 10 years. India had the trophy for the last 10 years, and so therefore it's a big win for Australia. It was a series which generated a lot of interest in Australia and India, as it was expected, because Australia-India contest has recently been very, very exciting indeed, and a lot of cricket experts has rated this series even above the Ashes. So that much interest has been created in this series, and so it has really been an exciting test series. This one, like the last one in 2020-21, when India won the series 2-1 in the final test and the final session, and this time the pitches were really, really bowling friendly. It was already the two sides had vulnerable batting lineups, and the bowlers has done very well for both the teams, particularly Australia. Overall, Australia had a better all-round bowling attack, of course, because Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, Josh Hazlewood, and Scott Boland and Nathan Lyon, they performed at different times. It was a those pitches mostly has been very, very result oriented. Only the Melbourne pitch had something for the batters, and the test match went there for 5 days. But after all, it has been a very exciting test series. India starting the test series very well, winning the first test at Perth by 295 runs or so, like that. Bumrah was leading the team in the first in the absence of Rohit Sharma, who was on parental leave. Rohit Sharma joined the team from the second test onwards, and late in the middle three tests, but due to his poor batting form, he was dropped, or he dropped himself in the last test, and Bumrah captained again. First test, India won due to the brilliant bowling of Jasprit Bumrah and very good batting by Yashasvi Jaiswal. The next big thing in Indian cricket. Young Jaiswal scored a brilliant 161 in the second innings, 100 from Kohli, a very good innings from KL Rahul, but it was Jasprit Bumrah's bowling in both the innings, particularly in the first innings, which helped India to win the first test at Perth. And Australia were already down 0-1 on a venue which helped Australia more than India. So the work was cut out for Australia, but then they got their act together from the second test onwards at Adelaide and the pink ball test. Mitchell Starc and their bowling attack rose to the occasion. Indian batting really struggled in both the innings, while Australian batting was helped by Travis Head's 100 and Manus Nabussen's 50, which helped Australia to get a good score. India really struggled again in the second innings, and Australia winning by 10 wickets at Adelaide. The third test at Brisbane was generally was rain affected. The last day it was very much so rain affected, which had Australia very little time to bowl out India in the second innings. It was a drawn match, but India in the match, in the time that was available, Australia really dominated. Travis had got another 100, and India were almost staring at defeat. With they just about saved the follow-on, but then they could not get going further in the series. In the test match, but finally the rain came to the rescue. In the fourth test at Melbourne, with the series 1-all, now India had to play in the last two tests at Melbourne and Sydney, generally expected to be their more favourable venues than the first three venues. So India were buoyant, but Australia, with their bowling and their batting, they rose to the occasion. They introduced a 19-year-old kid in the test match in the fifth test, because Bumrah was troubling the Australian batters, and so they wanted to throw something different right at the start of the Boxing Day test. And Sam Constance opening, the 19-year-old opening, scored a very good, very exciting 60 runs in the first innings. He played a lot of left shots. He got into a physical clash with Virat Kohli also. There was a lot of talks going on, but then his 60 runs helped Australia, other batters to get into the groove. Khawaja, who was not getting a run in the series all through, got some runs, got a 50. Steve Smith got 100, and Australia got a good scores, 470 odd. And then India once again faltered. The top batters faltered once again, but then Nitish Reddy came to the rescue with a brilliant 100. which kept India in the game. The second innings, Indian bowlers really challenged Australian batting, and Australia at one stage were 91 for 6, and they were only leading by barely 200 odd. But then Cummins and Nathan Lyon's batting, both scoring 40s, helped Australia to get to a score of 234 and gave India a target of 334 to win the Melbourne Test. India almost, after a very poor first session on the fifth day, India almost got themselves into a draw situation with Jaiswal and Pant batting well, but then a rash shot by Pant followed by another one from Jaiswal, and the collapse from the rest of the batting helped helped Australia to win the Melbourne Test. So India went into the last test of Sydney 2-1 down, but then the Sydney wicket once again gave India some hope actually, because that pitch had a lot of grass, and it was seaming around. So like Australian bowlers, Indian bowlers was also going to get a lot of help, and Australian batting is also very vulnerable as like Indian batting. And both that it was a very low scoring series. The test match lasted only 2.5 days. India getting 185, Australia 181 the first innings, India getting only 160 in the second innings, Australia getting a target of 164. Bumrah was not available for bowling on the final day, and that helped Australia to seal the series by 6 wickets. By winning the last test by 6 wickets, they started very quickly, and then there was a slight mini collapse in the middle order. They were 102 for 4 at one stage, but Bew Webster, who debuted in this match, batted brilliantly. He bowled well, he caught well, and he batted brilliantly in both innings, and that helped Australia to win the Sydney Test. Also, it was Scott Boland's bowling of 10 wickets in the final test that helped Australia finally to seal the series 3-1 and regain the Border Gavaskar Trophy after 10 years. Man of the series was Jasprit Bumrah. What a performance, what a bowler. Australian experts, many Australian experts has labelled him as the best bowlers to have visited their source, best ever bowler. I mean, he 32 wickets at 13 in 5 test series. It was brilliant performance, and those kind of figures generally wins a test series for a country, but this time, due to the lack of support from the batting and also lack of support from the other bowlers, Bumrah's Herculean efforts went in vain as India lost the series 3-1. For India, the only silver lining was Yashasvi Jaiswal's batting. Other promising some positives was Yashasvi Jaiswal's batting. I mean, he 391 runs at 43 average. He has done really well in this series, and he showed that he can bat in overseas. And I think he is ready for a very good test career now. While on the other hand, Nitish Reddy surprised everyone by his batting. His bowling is still a work in progress, but with his batting, his solid technique, his range of shots, he really attracted attention, and he can be a very good resource for India going forward. KL Rahul batted well as an other opener, particularly in the first half of the series, but then he couldn't keep up to his performance in the second half. Got some very good deliveries, but then his batting technique, leaving the balls outside the off, playing the line of the off stump, not edging, not poking at the line of the ball. His technique was really very, very something really needs to be followed to do well on the seaming tracks. But unfortunately, he just couldn't keep up to his performance in the latter half of the series. But the most disappointing for India has been the batting of the two stalwarts, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. Rohit Sharma, who played 3 test matches, he did not lead in the first test and the last test. In the middle 3 tests he led, and he batted so poorly that he had to be dropped, or he dropped himself in the final test. His footwork was not going anywhere. He had no more momentum in his batting, and just 31 runs in 6 innings at a dismal average of 6. But Virat Kohli had some batting horrors this time around in Australia. This time, after he has always done well in Australia in the past, but this time around, his outside the off-stump weakness was exposed very badly by the Australian quicks. His lack of strokes on the off-stump line, lack of back foot game on the off-stump line, and his knack of going forward, playing out of his crease, really did not help, as he kept nicking deliveries outside the off-stump. And in all his dismissals in this series, he got out in the similar fashion. And he really needs to have a look at his batting right now in Test cricket. whether he needs to play domestic cricket, maybe some county cricket before the next series in England, or I think the Indian selectors really needs to have a talk with both Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma to understand what they are going in Test cricket. It has been really very, very disappointing for Virat Kohli. I am not sure how we're going to get over this issue of his outside the off stump weakness. On the other hand, there was Shubman Gill, who did not, who a lot of was expected out of Shubman Gill after a very good series last time in Down Under, but this time he struggled and he just couldn't get past 30. I mean, it is very disappointing performance by a youngster who's trying to make it big in Test cricket. So Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Shubman Gill have been a big disappointments, and the Indian batting overall has been a big disappointment in this series. Only positive signs for India has been Jaiswal, Nitish Rana, and of course Jasprit Bumrah. For Australia, their batters also had a lot of struggles. Labuschagne, Khawaja had no answer to Jasprit Bumrah. Khawaja, who had a great 2023, really struggled this season and this season in Australia against Jasprit Bumrah. And only when Bumrah, who did not bowl on the final day of the Sydney Test, which helped Australia also to wrap up the series, because Bumrah was injured midway in the first innings of Sydney Test. Then Usman Khawaja got a fluent 41 in the last inning. So which means that Khawaja really had trouble with one bowler. He did get another 50 in Melbourne, but really he struggled. So his test future is also, I would not say questionable, but then he also is more closer to the end of his test career rather than at the start. Steve Smith had his rough times in the series, but then he batted very well in a couple of test matches, hundreds in Gabba and another one in Melbourne. This was a match-winning one, which sustained Steve Smith in this series. But it was Travis Head who was the batsman of the series. Well, Jaiswal scored 391 runs. Travis Head scored 448 runs. 448 runs in this series at an average of 56, where the next best average was in the 40s. So which means you can well imagine how well Travis had batted in this series. He absolutely dominated India in a couple of test matches, and he was very close to the Man of the Series award, but it went to the brilliance of Jasprit Bumrah. Pat Cummins was brilliant in this series as well, and he was also very close to the Man of the Series award. 159 runs, crucial runs at crucial times, 25 wickets in the series, brilliant captaincy. I think Pat Cummins is one of the finest Test cricketers at this moment in this world, and what a performance he has put on once again. And whenever Australia had trouble, in breaking a partnership, nothing is going well for them, Pat Cummins came and rescued them. As for the other bowlers of Australia, Josh Hazlewood bowled well whenever he was fit. Scott Boland was a revelation, 21 wickets in 3 tests at 13 average. He was brilliant in this series, and he was an absolutely bogeyman for Virat Kohli. Dismissed him, I think, 5 times in this series. And then there was the other bowlers supported well, like Bill Webster bowled well in the final day. Nathan Lyon, wherever he bowled pretty well, 9 wickets in the series. He didn't have to do that much. It was not much of a series for the spinners. For Australia, Bill Webster debuted very well. Mitchell Marsh had a disappointing series, but Bill Webster came in the last test and has batted beautifully, like a millionaire. He batted in the final test match, both the innings. In the second innings, he helped team winning the series. He caught well, he bowled well, and really, I think Australia definitely the better team, man for man, and they put up better team performances to win the series, and really deserve to win the series. What this series loss could be a blessing in disguise for India, because now they can get into their test team and look at what they need to repair. There needs to be some fresh blood introduced into the test team. Mohammad Shami was missed in this series definitely, but he's also not getting any younger. Australia also, by the way, missed Cameron Green in this series, but then the others really lived up to the billing whenever it was required. So Australia, after a very disappointing first test, they came back and won the series well. India would have really struggled without Jasprit Bumrah. It was Bumrah who largely kept India in this series. Had he not been there, India probably would have been whitewashed in this series. Such was the impact of Jasprit Bumrah in this series. He had real great impact, 13 wickets at 13. No one more deserving for a man of the series. But then, I think overall, great test series, very excited, very exciting test series. It generated a lot of interest in Australia. Of course, Border Gavaskar test series, India Australia test series have been generating a lot of interest of late, and a lot of experts also labeled it as a better series than the Ashes, because in Ashes England hardly won for the last 10 years in Australia. So in that way, India is the only team which has of late gave stiff competition to Australia in the last 5-6 years. So overall, a great test series, a very exciting test series. Australia winning it, but India now really need to look at themselves how they can replenish, revamp their test team going forward. So thank you for listening, and keep subscribing. Thank you very much.